Yeah, Kenny, you said it. You said it before I could get to it. There certainly is a lot of enthusiasm here in Bermuda Run tonight. While you mentioned this race was called relatively early, and while this party has died down quite significantly, there are still supporters and family members who are still here, still sort of reveling in the moment. We talked to a couple of folks who told us, though, that the work really gets started now. Ted Budd did speak earlier today. He had his wife and his 3 adult children on stage with him as he gave his remarks. He thanked former President Donald Trump for his endorsement last summer and for the entire Trump family for being supportive of this Senate run. Budd mentioned that primaries can be a bit awkward, saying that in other circumstances he may have supported some of his challengers. He thanked the 13 other candidates and said that they will come together moving forward, and with that they will have a Republican fill this Senate seat.
We need to pull together, and we need to look to the real race in November. So I was glad to see that many of the events that we all participated in, each one of us took a unity pledge and we raised our hand to support the eventual winner of this primary. And that sends a clear message to the Democrats that this party is united and is poised to take back the Senate and to save this country.
So during his remarks, Budd mentioned that he visited, North Carolina's 100 counties. And he said in talking with voters and families there, a lot of them had concerns about grocery prices, gas prices, inflation, and crime. He said that he heard them and that he wants to address those issues. He says that he will not stop. He will continue to advocate for North Carolinians as they do prepare for the November election. But that's the latest here in Davie County tonight. You can still see there are a few people still hanging on, still enjoying what was a very exciting evening for Budd and his team and his family. We'll send it on back to you.
All right, Leanne, thank you. On the Democratic side, as we just shared with you, Cheri Beasley wins, the former Chief Justice, running to replace retiring Richard Burr. Ford Hatchett in Raleigh at the Democrats' watch party now. Hi, Ford.
Yeah, hey, Christine. Well, unlike the GOP side where there was that contested race, it has been a foregone conclusion for months that Cheri Beasley would be the Democratic nominee for this seat. And it's kind of crazy to think about. If Beasley hadn't lost the Chief Justice race in 2020 by just 400 votes, she wouldn't even be running for this race right now, for this seat. But instead, of course, she did lose that race. And now Beasley is hoping to become the first black woman ever to represent the state of North Carolina in the United States Senate. Polls closed this evening around 7:30, and it took less than 15 minutes for NBC News to call this race for Beasley. Governor Roy Cooper, who appointed Beasley as Chief Justice in 2019, spoke about her experience and qualifications, and then just before 8:30, Beasley took the stage and outlined her priorities in this race: expanding the Affordable Care Act, providing universal pre-K, and gaining the support of working-class families, something some Democrats feel the party has lost in recent election cycles. And in turning to the general election, Beasley didn't name her opponent here tonight. And frankly, it felt like kind of a boilerplate speech intended to encompass whoever won that GOP nomination tonight. Of course, it was Ted Budd. You heard from Leanne. But Beasley says he's more loyal to corporate interests than to voters.
And we know my opponent and his allies will continue to distort and demean and pour millions of dollars into disgraceful attacks intended to trick voters, rather than fighting for the people or working to make our lives better. That's not what we need, and we absolutely cannot afford it.
And as we turn to this general election, you can bet that the Beasley-Budd showdown will likely be one of the most expensive Senate races in the country again, just as it was in 2020 here in North Carolina. And so you expect a lot of money and more campaign ads flowing to our state. Live tonight in Raleigh, Ford Hatchett, WXII 12 News.
All righty, Ford, thank you very much. Let's continue our team coverage now of this U.S. Senate race. It was over early. We have Louis Tran live in Charlotte for us this evening with the McCrory campaign. And Louis, of course, the former governor did not get the endorsement of former President Trump.
Yeah, Hetty, that's correct. Former North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory just conceded, and he did congratulate Congressman Ted Budd. Now, the outcome between the two was not close. McCrory came in second with more than 25% of the votes. Meanwhile, Ted Budd had more than 58% of the votes. Now, during his concession, as Kenny mentioned, the former governor said that he knew it would be a tough race a year ago when former President Donald Trump had announced publicly that he did not represent McCrory's values. McCrory responded tonight and said that the former president was correct. McCrory said that he represents Trump's policies, but not his values. At the end of his speech, McCrory urged voters that they must evaluate the Republican Party. He called many of his supporters as common sense conservatives. After his concession, he shared with us what he hopes will come for the U.S. Senate race in the general elections.
The Senate race, maybe we'll see some honesty about the incompetence of our president and our vice president from the Democrats. Be truthful, because that's what people are saying at the dinner table. And on the Republican side, I hope we see some honesty about some leaders in our party that maybe don't have the character or temperament to lead our party in the future.
Now, here's an interesting fact. Selwyn Pub here, right here where we are, is a personal place in McCrory. The owner of the pub tells me that McCrory was one of his first customers back in 1990. This was before he became the mayor of Charlotte and governor. Since then, both have been close friends. In Charlotte, I'm Louis Tran, WXII 12 News.
Louis, thanks very much. Let's stay with the Republicans. Let's go to Summerfield now. Jackie Pascal was with the Mark Walker campaign this evening, and kind of a somber tone there as well, Jackie.
Yeah, Kenny, it really wasn't even close as we started to get those results. And very early tonight, this race was called. Walker saying he is disappointed, frustrated with these results, but also proud of his campaign. He acknowledged, though, that there were hurdles that started popping up even last year he knew he really couldn't overcome. And they range, of course, from the endorsements we were mentioning earlier that came to his competitor, U.S. Representative Ted Budd, and they came from former President Trump as well as Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. And he was also totally overpowered in campaign donations as well. Walker says he is happy, though, his campaign never ran a negative ad. He continuously ran a, quote, ethical campaign. I did ask if he would be supporting his competitor here, the primary winner, Representative Ted Budd. He says yes.
He has my full support, as all the Republicans do, and we're going to get out there the next 6 months, traveling the state of North Carolina and doing everything that we can to push back this radical ideology that's coming from modern-day Democrats. A couple different times we were offered deals to get out of the race. Even though those were opportunities to take it on ramp to something else, we have no regrets.
And before we heard that concession speech from the former congressman, we did hear a lot from community members. A lot of their speeches about Walker were very forward focused. A lot of them saying he has a bright future ahead for North Carolina politics. So we'll be interested to see exactly what that looks like. As far as Walker goes, he said he would not comment on the future. He's still processing his first loss in an election. Live in Summerfield, Jackie Pascal, WXII 12 News.